We will, we will unshock you. This is Unshocked.
Welcome back to Unshocked. My name is Reggie, and this is the program where we discuss different cultures and take away the shock from culture shock. We here at Unshocked all hope that the year ends with, if not widespread cheer, because of the many admittedly sad events unfolding in multiple regions worldwide, then at least a lot of hope for the new year. There is much reason to hope because we've faced immense despair just recently, and hey, what do you know? We're still marching and kicking. Let's not forget that it was in December of 2019 when COVID first appeared. And we did manage to overcome that terrible, terrible calamity after much persistence and determination. And with much help from many people who put themselves between the illness and the rest of us. Among these brave souls who were most at risk were medical personnel. In this group can be found many Filipino nurses whose presence collided with many of the most risky and demanding challenges posed by the pandemic. Filipinos themselves are among those who will say that Filipino nurses are among the best in the world in their profession. Filipino nurses did gain attention during the pandemic because it has been reported that a lot of them, unfortunately, succumbed to COVID themselves, even while taking care of the most affected patients. And indeed, a Filipino nurse was the one who administered the first shot of an approved COVID 19 vaccine to history's first recorded recipient, then 90-year-old Margaret Keenan at a local hospital in Coventry, England. Also in the month of December last 2020. Chances are, wherever you are in the world, you'll be encountering a nurse in one way or another, and many of them will be from my country. And so, as our program's year-ender, perhaps it's a fitting time to discuss the question of whether there is some truth to any suggestion that Filipinos are somehow like super performers as nurses. Let's ask some Filipino nurses themselves. And let's also paint a ground level picture of how our guest nurses were able to run the gauntlet of the COVID pandemic and how they came out of the other side, bruised and battered, but unbeaten. Yes, this is like a movie in real life. Feel free to pause anytime to take a breath. This will be a bit deep, but well worth your time. Welcome to the 2023 year-end episode of Unshocked, and I turn you over to myself. So, for this episode, we are discussing the most consequential event of this decade. When the COVID 19 pandemic arrived, the first line of defense that humanity actually had were health workers and first responders, the so called frontliners. And our guests are frontliners. We're here to talk to them and hear from them if it will help make us reflect on what really happened. So, well, let me just introduce Mildred. Hi, Mildred. I hope you're doing well.
Hi, good.
I'm also joined by Rhea. Hi, Rhea.
Hello.
Okay, so for the benefit of the audience, Mildred and Rhea are both in the UK, both working as RNs, which means registered nurses. And I'm also joined by Elmer. Hi, Elmer. Hi.
Hi, Reg.
Hi. I'm so glad to have all three of you here. Elmer, okay, is in the US. With this episode, we're actually reaching out to people from all over the world. Elmer, you told me before our recording that you're designated as BSN. So it's the equivalent of an RN.
Yeah, actually.
But right now, you're working as a nurse instructor now. So
Correct.
you're like one of the head honchos.
Not really.
No, no, no.
Not really.
I was just trying to qualify, the description as a nurse instructor. Our deep dive will be about your experiences during the pandemic. Maybe there is something to the story that Filipino nurses are like the most excellent. But let's go into your personal experiences first. Because I'm pretty sure that some people will react really whenever someone says, when you're looking for nurses, go look to the Filipinos because they're the best. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will react to that. Let's just give a context to each of our experiences. How did you end up in a nursing career? So if anyone wants to start.
But yeah, go start. I
That's
volunteer.
okay. Well, it's been my dream to be a doctor actually. But honestly, my mom said when I told her I wanted to be a doctor, she said, I cannot pay your university fees if you want to be a doctor. Can you not find anything else that's nearest to the doctor? So since she's a nurse, okay, I'll be a nurse. So from when I was young, I know already that I'll be a nurse. My grandma, who I grew up with my grandma, she said to me, when you finish university, make sure you go abroad so you'll get more money. So I worked a few years. I mean, in the Philippines first, and then I came here. I actually applied coming here with my best friend Mildred. We were together looking for work to come here, yeah. But I came here earlier than her. I came here September 2002 in UK, and so I've been here what 20 years, more than 20 years now in UK.
It wasn't strictly the fulfillment of your original wish to be a
Yes, because it's
medical
nearest
doctor.
to the one I want, so that's okay. Yeah, it's still nearest to the one I want, and so I'm still happy.
That sounds wonderful. That really sounds wonderful. You mentioned Mildred. So Mildred, is it okay to just tell everyone how you ended up in your present career?
I didn't really want to be a nurse. So
Okay.
yeah, you know how in the Philippines, your parents will tell you, "Oh, be a nurse because you can go abroad." I was like, okay, whatever. So I ended up getting to a university in the Philippines to get my nursing degree. But looking back, it was a good idea. It was one of the best idea because I wouldn't have dreamt of being able to travel around the world if I wasn't a nurse. So that's my little short story.
Let me just remark, Mildred's story is common. even
Mm.
even the comedian Jokoy, the Filipino American comedian, he uses that as a bit in his stand-up routines. That he says, yeah, a lot of Filipinos end up being nurses, which isn't what they originally set out to do, but it ended up being a good thing. How about you, Elmer? So you're in the US.
Nursing is my second choice. My first choice was to go journalism. I tried to audition when I was in fourth year high school in ABS-CBN
ABS-CBN is a major
network broadcasting
broadcaster
network
in
before.
the Philippines. Mhm.
I didn't get into the top 50 just because I'm way too strong. So that's what the director told me. It's like, you're way too firm, strong, personality wise, you cannot be a broadcaster. I was like, oh my God, for reals. So I ended up like, okay, let's go to my next choice, which is nursing. I took the entrance exam in only one school, which is PLM. If I failed the PLM, I'm not going to be a nurse right now.
PLM is the school.
I think it's a University of City of Manila. So in English. So if I didn't pass the entrance exam for that university, I may not be here.
But you sort of knew that you were going to end up in a foreign country while you were still.
No, it was an accident. I'm here in the United States. Actually, I did not like nursing before, I did not practice being a nurse. After graduating, I took only my licensure as a nurse in the Philippines. But guess what? I went into marketing. I went into a pharmaceutical representative. So I promote medications before. And then it so happened I topped the sales for the company in my area. And then one of the reward for being a top salesman is to go to the main office, which is located in United States. And then after that, They gave me a tourist visa. The tourist visa is my gateway to go to the United States. So,
Yeah, this was in the 1990s, right? Or
1999. 1999, 3 years after I graduated and then took my exam. Anyway, 1999, I traveled here and everyone tells me, like my friends here that lives in the United States, don't go home, just stay. So I was like, I only have 6 months. I still have my job because when I go back in the Philippines, I'll be promoting to be a product manager. And I was like, I have my car, I have everything. I will let go everything like that. That's only like a small amount of money you will lose. You got bigger opportunity here. I was like, good job. Okay, let's try. So I only self-review myself for 3 months. I utilized the 6 months period that I stayed here. I did not do anything vacation during the 6 months period. Until 6 months, I told them like, hey, I already passed my NCLEX or nurse licensure here in California. I'm resigning. They were shocked. Every person I know focused on marketing before. But I guess it's God's blessing, I should say. Because I always tell myself before like if it for me, give it to me then. So I always pray that if it's nursing for me here in United States, then give it to me so I could share the knowledge and talents that you gave me. That's always my prayers before. And guess what? God gave me this. I guess this is my calling.
I'm only talking to three of you. Just imagine the stories behind, hundreds of Filipinos who had to go abroad. You don't expect to hear that this nurse had this background. The stories are very rich. It's not typically what you would have expected to encounter. And I think it's about time we appreciated that. The experiences you bring to your workplace is more than just what you learned in your training. Would you say that your expectations in becoming nurses were compatible with the reality? Would you say that what you expected when going into this is what you encountered, or were you surprised?
I expected it to be difficult, obviously, because the Philippines treatment also of nurses are way low, and they think that nurses are like assistants of the doctors. So we just say yes to the doctors in the Philippines. I'm just saying this in the Philippines because our work ethics, yeah, it's in the Philippines. It's like um, if the supervisor asks you to stay overtime because there's somebody who's off sick in the next shift, you can't say no. And I think that's normal in the Philippines. But when I started working in abroad here, that doesn't happen at all, because when they say to you it's your time for break, you go for break. It doesn't matter if you're finishing something with a patient, you go for break when it's time for your break. It is how I expect it to be, but it is more enjoyable for me when I worked abroad, because I was able to express myself here, and in here they recognize some nurses. They the doctors here will ask the nurses advice. What do you think? Shall I do with this? And that's my personal experience, obviously, but it might be different for other Filipino nurses in other areas. But in where I work, I've always been treasured as a main part of the multidisciplinary team. So it is a difficult job, but it can be rewarding as well.
My experience is different though.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, yes, yes.
I think it's the other way around of Miles or Mildred. In UK, my feeling is different because they call you nurse, but I feel like I'm more the servant for them. Because can you get me this? Can you get me that? Can you clean me? Whereas in the Philippines, I didn't experience that. I mean, the family of the patients, they're even more grateful that you're looking after their family. And the doctors are asking me, like when I was working there, oh, what do you think? Because they know that the nurses have more time for the patients. So even the consultants in the Philippines, they ask for your opinion. When I came here, well, I was shocked at the beginning because at first I was like, back home, you don't wash people's, bottom because the family are doing that. So that's my first shock with me when I came to this country because I have to do it. So like I have a patient with diarrhea and I put on my apron, I put my gloves, but for sudden reason I don't know what to do. And the nurse, because I was new, and the nurse that was senior because I was just, what are you doing? Why are you staring? Because yeah, you're talking about feces all over, yeah, all over the bed and all over the thing. So the like diarrhea explosion or something. I'm sorry for saying that. So they told me, "What are you doing? Don't you know how to do this?" Of course, I know how to clean myself, and but to clean other people. So that's my first shock. Actually, we've got healthcare assistants or nursing aid, as you call, but it's looking like the we are helping the nursing aides rather than the nursing aides are helping us.
Doing okay.
Yeah, because our nursing aides they do their observations. We call it vital signs back home, but observations we call it here. The blood pressure. They do that. They do the blood sugar, but if the patient is bed bound, let's say we call it bed bound, if the patient is in bed, obviously that it doesn't come out. And if the patient has done number two, if the patient has done number two, then the nurse, the healthcare assistant will tell you, your patient has done number two. So you have to come and help me. So me as a nurse in here, I was answering phones, I was going with the doctors around, I was doing my medications, and on top of it, a healthcare assistant won't do anything and wait for you if especially if it's bed bound and it has to be two nurses to do it. So yeah. So it's looking like we are the one helping the healthcare assistant and the other way around. So in my work, not all of them, but most of the time it's like that, yeah. There are patients who's grateful that you're there. There are patients who's not and said, why I'm getting this food? I didn't order for this. So it's also part of your job to go and look if their food is not there. Sometimes I would feel like, you're not in the hotel, but obviously you can't say that to the patient. So if the patient say, well, I didn't order this, you have to find my food, give me my food. So as a nurse, it's part of me. So I'll have to go to the kitchen and find the patient's food that she likes or he likes.
It
So
reminds me of what
yeah,
airline stewardesses
you.
tell
So
about their unruly passengers. Yeah. How about you, Elmer? Did your expectations match the reality, or were there?
Yes, actually, because I bet because I think UK and US have really big difference in terms of relationship between healthcare people, like the interdisciplinary people. But in here, they know the hierarchy. We call it hierarchy of position. So in doctor to nurse relationship, as we speak right now, we don't have separation of power, but we respect what doctors' profession as their license speaks for it, but for the nurse, same thing. So there's a scope of practice versus the nurse and then the doctor itself. So we know the hierarchy. That's why we call each other first name basis. We call them doctor, example Reggie, Dr. Reggie only. In the Philippines, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, you need to praise the doctor. Here, it's the other way around. You need to praise the nurses because we're the front line for doctors here most of the time. So if you're not a good nurse, then the doctor knows that you're a stupid nurse. They're not gonna be allowed your patient to take care for them. They will say, "Oh, can you find another nurse? Because I don't like Nurse Elmer because he's playing dumb right now." So they know all about. So that's why there come a point that usually 99% is mostly Filipinos. So most doctor wants the Filipino nurses because we know for the fact that Filipino nurses are well educated. That's why we're the number one exporter of nurses to United States. right?
And that is confirmed. That is confirmed.
That is confirmed. Filipinos show the best assessment for patients here.
From what you guys tell me, there's really no cookie cutter expectation, right? You will really encounter things that you never imagined. So you've managed to adapt to realities. The reason why I had to ask you about expectations and the reality is because going to COVID-19, right? Me personally, I heard about it in a news item in November of 2019 when it was mentioned in a small article. It wasn't the main headline. It was just a sidebar maybe in CNN that mentioned there are reports of a flu-like illness similar to SARS appearing in something like that. Wuhan, I think. Wuhan province. I personally didn't think it was that relevant, that scary. I'm just pretty sure that you had your preparation training for any kind of pandemic, right? I'm not sure if I'm being accurate here, but an Ebola epidemic did happen in Africa, and I think a lot of nurses around the world trained for it. So when the imminent arrival of COVID-19 in your location was already approaching, were you brought up to some training of some sort in anticipation? How about you, Miles Area? Was there any kind of preparation you could recall somehow? Did anyone in the office or the clinic start saying, "Hey, we should prepare for a major influx of patients or major arrival of infections"?
Yeah, I work in recovery, so we have patients coming from theater, from operating room, from having surgery, and then we take care of them during the pandemic. I think it started. We heard about it by January 2020, and then it suddenly exploded in Italy. And I think everybody was really scared because they can see dead people everywhere in Italy. And obviously, Italy is within Europe. We're expecting in a couple of months or in a month's time, it will happen in the UK. So the preparation they've done in where I work is they stopped elective surgeries, the planned surgeries, to accommodate a possible influx of patients. So they closed operating areas and then converted them into ITUs or ICU, intensive care unit. And then they started purchasing loads of ventilators because they knew it's a respiratory disease. And then we were trained in making sure that we are prepared for these kinds of patients. My job description became like a respiratory nurse or intubation nurse. So I was one of those staff who were really close to COVID patients, positive COVID patients who need ventilators. When you see in movies, the ones looking who's going to the space, the astronaut costumes, we have those. In your question, yes, we were given trainings, but it wasn't obviously because we knew it's going to be imminent. We were really scared. Even our chief anesthetists were saying to us, "It's going to be shit."
I
Yeah.
can't I can't imagine if I were a coach and I just told my players, "Oh man, it's going to be shit." Oh God, Elmer, when there was already news of a major pandemic, were there any preparations?
No, there is no preparation during the time. You were right. I personally saw the tweet. There's a tweet regarding COVID-19 early 2019, like March of 2019, and then it was mentioned again, another tweet on November 2019, and US is already been monitoring that one. They were shocked, actually. I should say they were shocked that it came all the first state that was affected was New York. So it came to from Italy, Mildred, I will connect that from Italy, that person traveled to New York.
Mm.
So that's how the New York came as the top cases of COVID-19. And during that time, it wasn't like they wanted to stop all the airport from New York so they cannot get out from other states. That's the only thing they want to do. CDC starts spreading information only that it is an airborne infection, and that's about it. All the news they were like spreading that there is a COVID-19 in New York, and it's like they call it a zombie apocalypse because 1 to 2 days patient would die easily. So that patient infected, but he remains asymptomatic. That was like the biggest shock. That person who brought the virus still remained alive. That this person carried it, but it wasn't sure where the patient got the virus. But eventually it spread out. It spread out from other state near New York. It was New Jersey and Philadelphia. And then they keep stopping every airport, every travel. Do not travel for now, but there is no precaution except do not travel, stay home, and that's it. And then all the healthcare from CDC told us you need to start checking the temperature, you need to start checking the oxygen saturation, signs and symptoms of flu-like symptoms, all those verbally, and then all company, healthcare provider company, like all the hospitals, they have their own policy and procedure to deal with the virus.
So yeah, basically you're saying people never really felt the urgency. So
No.
it was nearly just business as usual, but only a little more alert, something like that.
Yeah.
So when people started to get infected, did you kind of expect something like a zombie apocalypse, or
Yeah.
were you surprised?
We're not surprised because they're all stubborn of following the rules and regulations by the CDC. So we expected, even healthcare, all the doctors and nurses expected that it will happen, that everyone will be affected by COVID because they don't want to get masks because they always say, "Oh, I'm uncomfortable wearing mask 24/7." And then they will come and present themselves in the ER having those signs and symptoms. And guess what? I'm also a nurse. I'm tired. If you're not listening, you're going back here. I'm not gonna admit you. Go back to your home. Take care of yourselves. We're all full, well, full capacity. A lot of people have more worst case scenario because the one that really needed the ventilator at that time was those really dying people, really dying patients. But if your symptoms are less infectious, then you just have to take care of yourselves at home. So after 14 days, you can still take care of yourselves. However, do not go anywhere else because you might submit yourself spreading those viruses from other people.
How about you, Rhea? In the case of Mildred, doctors were just saying you prepare for the worst.
Yeah, my experience is probably different. My ward became the first COVID ward in the whole of the hospitals. We are the first ward that look after COVID. All patients that goes to my ward is COVID. The good thing with my hospital is because I was diabetic, they told me you're not going to look after the COVID patients. It's a shock in a way because we're not prepared for it. As the days go by, we can see from first patients they were walking and then suddenly difficulty breathing. Then the second day they will be in ITU or intensive care and then dying. And then your colleagues will be it doesn't want to work anymore to this with the patients because they're scared because obviously this patient was walking yesterday, only have temperature, was walking, talking, then suddenly difficulty breathing. You can see, we are the first ward, so we will see patients receiving patients starting from their first symptoms, and then the second day they will have difficulty breathing, and you already putting them into high concentration of oxygen, and then they will be moving to intensive care unit. And then you will just learn in 1 to 2 days they died, and some died, not everyone, but yeah. The thing is, I got sick at the first wave. I got COVID. I started. Why is my throat dry? I don't know. There's not even a test before. I just isolated myself, but eventually it came out I had COVID. It was bad. I thought I was going to die because my colleague died. Actually, it was sad that she died. She got it first, and then a week after I had COVID. We were talking, and how are you, ate? And then one day she just said, I am having difficulty breathing. I think I have to let myself be admitted. So she was admitted, and then yeah, it was sad that yeah she passed away, and she's Filipino too. It was sad because even the family, the husband is not there. You're not allowed to come and visit that time. So the husband was just informed of what's happening to her. We were the ones who's calling the hospital, what's happening, the close ones. And then the children are in the Philippines. That is sad that they didn't get to see their mom. She's got two boys in the Philippines. I am lucky. I can say I am lucky because the government as well as my hospital shielded me, so I didn't work for 1.5 year. But it was scary because there was a point where I thought I'm going to die already because I wasn't admitted in the hospital. I was in the house, but I was in my room. But I cannot tell my husband and my children that I can't breathe anymore. My heart was racing. I have a chest pain but yeah, when it happened, I thought I'm going already. I have a respiratory condition as well. They call it respiratory condition because I'm not breathing when I'm sleeping, so I'm on a machine. I even made a letter to my best friend Mildred that she will look after my children. I mean, not she will look after my children if something happens to me, something like that. It was that bad. I felt I was going to already that night, but then I put my machine. I think that helped me too. I put my machine. I went to sleep, and then I woke up, and then I'm okay. You know. Even the consultant told me I am amazed that you're still alive, because when I had COVID, they said you have COVID, and then you cannot breathe, and then you're not breathing. So I don't know how you managed to be alive. So I think it's still God that helped me really. I work actually as a COVID helpline after when I was at home. So I was the one answering calls when the hospitals are. It's COVID helpline for the hospital. So colleagues, nurses, everyone who's calling who's got COVID, I advised them. I became COVID helpline, which is really good because I was advising what to do. Looking back, I'm still grateful for my hospital and the government that they shielded me because I still have three children. Imagine if something happened to me that time. You know, although it's sad that other nurses, other Filipino, and there's so many people. I mean, nurses and doctors and frontliners that died as well.
Okay, I guess this is as good a time as any to take a step back and give our appreciation to those who sacrificed so much in fulfillment of their duty to save lives. All those who put themselves on the line against COVID in any capacity all over the world. The discussion so far can sound like so many apocalyptic movies, but just like a lot of those same movies, there is always hope in the end. And so, we come to part 2 of our program. One of our guests, Mildred, had to attend to her duties as a nurse, and so we had to switch gears. And fortunately, my frequent co-conspirator, Nathan, was able to join us and share his insight. As you may have already heard mentioned in our previous episodes, Nathan himself is a health worker, and so his perspective is absolutely welcome. This time, we dive deep into the question: are Filipino nurses all over the world so outstanding in their work as to be champions of the nursing profession, as many Filipinos themselves would often like to say? Again, let's ask the nurses themselves. For this segment, I'm joined by Nathan, Elmar, and Rhea May, whom we also refer to as May. And this is Reggie. And I again turn you over to myself. The last time we were talking about the experience of Filipino nurses during the COVID-19 pandemic. And here we are having another go at this. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. So, returning as guests are Elmer,
Hi, Reg.
May,
Hello to all of you.
and I'm with my erstwhile partner in every episode, Nathan.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Hi, everyone.
Nathan, you do work in the medical field.
I do well as what you call an assistant in nursing, so it's kind of the lower grade of nursing. But yeah, currently work as a disability support worker, and previously to that, I worked in aged care for getting on towards 6 years. So yeah, that's my nursing background, so to speak.
All of us have experienced the COVID-19 pandemic, but it was very clear by what you, Elmer, May, and Mildred all related to us last time. You were in the thick of the battle. All this discussion about Filipino nurses, it really came about because of the COVID-19 pandemic. They're saying that the reason why so many nursing graduates from the Philippines will be in demand in other countries in the coming years is because of the ability and the dedication to the work that those countries have seen among Filipino nurses during the pandemic. Even the health department here in the Philippines, they keep saying that Filipino nurses are so in demand abroad. I'm so curious to know from you, May, and Elmer, being nurses that work in two Western countries. How do you feel about attention like that? Do you feel good about it, or do you feel uncomfortable? Does it have any bearing on your everyday affairs?
For me, not really, not much, because when I choose nursing, I mean, my heart is into nursing. So whatever I do it through my heart. So either way, if politicians or anybody back home are taking pride. Well, I'm proud of being a Filipino, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to brag about it. I've already been in the nursing profession for like what more than 20 years. So I take pride on on how we were taught in the Philippines. That's I take pride, but knowing that politicians or other people are saying, "Oh, the Filipinos are very good," and it's like that. It's not always the case. There can be other people that's also very good.
So you're saying that you're really just doing your vocation.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if people talk about it, but actually, it's not actually nice sometimes when they talk too much because you might, hurt other people who are very good as well in the line of nursing, if you know what I mean. You can't say only Filipinos are very good because there are other people too who's very good, maybe Australian, maybe American. There are also people who's really very good as well. So my pride is doing what I have with what I have to do, and actually, when my patients get better, that's my only consolation, really, because compared to the work and the money you get is small compared to the work you do.
Mm.
It's up to you, really. I mean, I chose this profession, so yeah, I'm happy with what I am.
How would you look at it, Elmer? I mean, you know that some people are looking at the Filipino nurses as a segment. I mean, do you even pay mind to it, or?
I agree with Ray perspective also of how nurses being perceived here. So I could speak for myself just because I don't know what other Filipino nurses think about those recognition from the Philippines itself. So they take pride definitely for those Filipinos who made names abroad, not specific for UK, US, but entire world. So they always take pride if someone can will be awarded special mention as
Yeah,
the best nurse.
can I just interject here? It was mentioned here in the Philippines, especially that the first nurse who
Is that it
administered
was the first
the
nurse
first
who injected the
vaccine.
first COVID in UK is a Filipino nurse, and she was featured everywhere in the Philippines.
Yes, yes, you do remember that, right? Yeah, there
Yeah,
was that sort of attention on that particular.
correct.
Okay, okay. So
However, is that a
yeah.
milestone to celebrate something that is not even a milestone for that person,
Oh,
right?
okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't think the person who injected the first COVID-19 vaccine is pretty much happy. As she was saying, she was scared because she was the only nurse that is assigned to give the first vaccine. No one wants to work on that day when she was interviewed. Okay, it's mutual. Why should I give this vaccine and yet it's not going to be effective? Right? Because we are not sure that time if that vaccine is pretty much 70% or 90% effective. For me, personally, I won't be proud if I after I gave that vaccine and I acquired the the virus.
You're saying it's really part of your job. It's part of
Correct.
the pledge you made. So it's not
Correct.
something like you're making a special effort.
Really like a big deal because that's your responsibility. You work there, you are assigned to work there, and then you have to go do your job as a nurse. No if, no bath. You have to go there on the front line. You cannot just back off. There's battle there.
And I think that's much closer to how the members of your profession generally would actually feel.
Because here in the United States, there are a lot of organization, Filipino organization, whether you are farmer, whether you are a nurse or regional organization. And each organization represents ethnicity. So if you're Latino, Black, whatever, and every organization are well represented. And that's why we are United States. They unite each of those people with regards to organization, just like Filipinos. However, some of these organizations are politically inclined. So
Okay.
they only recognize people that they really like to be recognized. Whether you want to recognize Reggie Guye as the best podcaster in America, you will be awarded because you elbow
You're
to
part
elbow
of
with
that.
the president of the organization.
Okay.
Right? They're just gonna put their names there like as a best nurse. Who cares? Are you really best nurse?
True.
If there is like an Olympic, let's just say Olympic
Yeah.
of nurses, I don't know if Filipino will make it to the top three.
Yeah.
Skills wise,
And
we might. Why we have so much skills. However, we need to be on top of our knowledge too. Sometimes Filipinos they don't want to. We don't want too much responsibility anymore because
okay.
we're thinking of money only. I do not work too much, but I just give me the money. But if I work to remember equation wise, if I give you $10,000 a month, that consummates with you with more workload. Same thing as
Uh,
I was in management. So I could speak of because
yes,
I was
yes.
a manager.
You were in a management position as a
Yeah, I stooped
well,
down because I
yeah.
stepped down during the pandemic because it's way too much workload for me. On
Okay.
those 2 years of pandemic here, it started you having breakdown. It's not worth it anymore. I earned two hundred
How?
thousand dollars. Okay, I'll give you my annual. That time is $200,000.
Yeah, but you're sure you were of that disclosure, right? I mean, you're not
Yeah, no, who
unthinkable. Okay,
cares?
okay, okay.
200,000, is it worth it for 2 years of meditation? To be honest with you guys, it's not.
Mm.
I would rather be on the background versus in the front because
Mhm.
Uh,
management they think they need to be on the front. I manage how many people? I manage like 40 plus nurses. How many patients? 200 patients. Where should my mind go? Is it for the money or for my sanity?
Exactly.
but some people, especially here in the Philippines, like to paint the brush that says Filipino nurses are like saints somehow.
Are you sure? Because there are senators, I think, or politicians in the Philippines. They were telling that whatever nurses do in abroad is just like it's like a domestic helper. Okay,
Like a
nanny.
oh,
Okay,
okay,
this
okay, okay.
politician. I think it's a female politician. I'm not particular if it's senator or Congress. But she mentioned that anyway, we keep sending Filipino nurses abroad. But guess what they're doing in abroad? They're just nanny or they're just assisting sick people abroad, taking care of those sick people. Why do they have 4 year course or bachelors? Do they really need to be 4 year bachelors? Have you watched that news before? I was like offended. Why do we need 4 year course for nurses to be trained in the Philippines because they're just doing nanny job? And
Oh, okay, okay.
then mentioned it was just like a slap on the face.
Yeah, it's so shocking. Because they
Oh,
don't
you
know the work
uh-huh.
that we do. They don't know the work that we do. We're not just nannies.
Correct. We're saving lives, excuse me. And then for
Uh-huh.
that senator or congresswoman that spoke about our job here in abroad, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
I would understand if it would cause some distress, really. I just have to explain a bit more to Nathan about this because Nathan, here in the Philippines, there are some sectors who do not see nursing as a sophisticated line of work. Let's say that in Australia, having a degree of, do you call it RN?
Yes, an
Yeah.
RN registered nurse. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, the kind of work that like I do as an AIN, that's kind of the lowest sort of form of nursing, and it's just caregiving. But I'm not a nanny either. You would do a different qualification to do that sort of work.
That's what they're trying to say, my our guests, because in the Philippines there was a time when one of the leading politicians, that politician described Filipino nurses as not being in a respectable profession.
She doesn't know what she's talking about.
So
Correct. I agree with you, Nathan. She
Mm.
doesn't know what because she's not a nurse.
it just goes to show, I guess, that here in the Philippines there is some contention actually about how the Filipinos themselves are supposed to deal with the fact that many of our countrymen are working overseas. It's something that causes conflicting feelings here in the Philippines. Okay, so yeah, a lot of Filipino nurses do manage to be accepted in a lot of countries. Elmer and May, do you think that because you had an upbringing here in the Philippines and you're basically bringing your culture over there, do you think some of it helped you through the pandemic? Some of it actually became an advantage?
Not only the pandemic. When I came here in 2002, for example, because I work in a private hospital in the Philippines before coming here, so we have equipments that the government side doesn't have. So when I came to this country, I was shocked that they were just introducing a machine that was already being used 3 years before in the Philippines. When I first came in UK, and we were told, just lie low, don't act as if you know everything. So these were the advice before when we first came, because when we first came here, they don't know how we were taught in the Philippines, because they think that our education was comparing to their education is 2 years, like we were short of 2 years. So they don't know that we were finished, we have a degree, and we had a bigger scope with regards to that. So in my ward, they introduced this feeding pump for a patient. When one of the patients cannot eat, so they put a tube in their nose to go to the stomach. So it's attached to a machine. So I was shocked when I was already using that in the Philippines for the first 3 years, and it's just being introduced in here. So I pretended not to know because they said, okay, don't pretend that you know everything. Yeah, the pump was bleeping and bleeping, and obviously I want to stop it because I know how to manage it. And then my mentor was having a trouble because it's his first time to use the machine. And yeah, and when he went out, I just quickly, did something to the machine to stop it bleeping because it was alarming. And then he saw me and said, May, I didn't know you know this machine. And I said, well, yes, I know the machine because I've been using that for 3 years in the Philippines. Really? I mean, how come they just introduce it here and you've been using that for so long? I mean, well, uh, you're not bragging skills that you get working there. So sometimes, yeah, you have a bit of a pride in there, but Filipinos are normally they don't brag about it. They just see it. People just see what you do. Filipinos are resourceful as well. I mean, we know how to, regulate the IV fluids without a machine because we were old school. We were counting it by drops. I remember when I was students, we have this watch and we were counting it by drops, and we know by experience just by looking at the drops if it will go running, it's running 8 hours here because of with all the technologies now, the students nowadays they rely on the machines. The problem with the machine, if the machine doesn't work, then they lost already.
Yeah.
They can't do. That's the difference with me, probably old school, when I don't have that facility.
Mhm, mhm.
But with our experience, when something happens, that's the good thing with it. When something happens and you don't have all these machineries, you don't have all these machines, even taking the blood pressure, they're so used now. You just attach them and you can get the blood pressure. But what if the patient's blood pressure is very low and the machine cannot pick it up?
Mm.
Then
Mm.
you rely on those old ways that, yeah, they call for us.
Mm.
Does resourcefulness somehow come into play when there were shortages in supply during the height of the first and
Not
second
only in the
wave?
pandemic, but in the normal sense of way. Because sometimes they would say, how can I put these IV fluids when I don't have an IV stand?
Okay, okay.
And
Yeah, I
I am, as
remember
a
that.
Filipino, I know that I just need to hook it somewhere else. You know what I did? I just took a paper clip, I
Mhm.
hung the bag, I put it in the curtain side. So that's it. You don't have an IV stand, but you can put it up. You just have to use your sense to put it up, just put it up. But you can't say you don't have a infusion pump, because if you have a lot of patients, like let's say in the pandemic you had a lot of patients, but you don't have any stand where you can put the
Okay, yeah.
IV drip, then you can't rely on stands. You just have to find a way to put it up. Filipinos are trained to be like that. You don't have the facility, then find a way that you can put it up.
How about you, Elmer? Did you have that sort of resourcefulness? There were many shortages of supplies somehow.
We do. However, since it's healthcare, so we need to be get approved. I like what May has spoken about the paperclip, because that's not gonna be how they get violate the infection control, because we have to make sure that whatever we do creativity wise, okay, we don't have IBPO, it's not gonna affect the infection control.
Uh,
But if it does affect the infection control, we
uh,
cannot just do our own thing. We could do that, however, we need approval. But if we do, of course, the manager will say, "Okay, I'll back you up. Don't worry about it. Just do whatever you can to save the patient." It's because you want us to save the lives of that patient. So for experience wise, yeah, creativity. Filipinos are 100% creative. They could do whatever they could for as
they
long
can
as
manage with the resources that are
correct.
available.
Another thing is like resilient. Filipinos are resilient.
Okay,
Whatever
okay.
shortage, we will be able to follow whatever we can. We're not not following the policy and procedure, but still, it's beyond the policy and procedure. come to a point, even PPE or lab gown that we need to use every day, we have to wear it 5 times. So you cannot change lab gowns every day anymore. Used to be disposable because every PPE has to be disposable.
Uh-huh.
So as a manager before, I was telling the higher up told us like, hey, tell all the staff this is company protocols in this pandemic. We're missing a lot of supplies now. So tell the staff they cannot change the gown every day. If they will change the gown, it has to be with blood or whatever secretions coming from the patient. If it's still okay to wear for next couple of days, they have to wear that for the 5 single day.
So you had to tell your staff to reuse because the practice was endorsed by the government too. So you're just confirming that there are some traits that we as Filipinos have that did come in useful at least during those times in the pandemic that we really need to draw upon.
So I guess for that matter, we will not be shocked at all because we already exposed on that ahead of time.
It's very heartening for me to know that you can bring that sort of resourcefulness over there. Well, okay, so you're always gonna hear from fellow Filipinos at least that Filipino nurses have a tendency to treat patients like family, so they have a special bond with the patient, or they tend to develop a special bond with their patient. But is there at least something to it? How about you, Elmer? What do you think?
Actually, okay, because as what May mentioned a while ago, it depends on how many Filipinos working on the floor or
Mm-hmm.
working in a certain department. If I'm the only Filipino, it will be recognizable because for me, I could speak for myself.
Yes.
I'm a type of an organized nurse. When I started working on the floor, I organized myself like positive. So I always, when I clock in at work, when I used to work on the floor, my start of the day, I will start with prayer. So I will start like, hey, Lord, lead me that I will not be able to kill somebody else today.
Yes.
So
Wow.
that's my prayer every day. I won't be able to kill anybody today, because wrong
Sounds a bit
decision.
funny, but it's true, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true.
the
Because
pressure is true.
any wrong nursing judgment or decision you make to your patient might cost their lives.
True. Yeah.
So that's the reason why that's my prayer. And then it will be I'm a cheerful guy. I always have a positive, perspective, whether it's short of staff. I don't care about that. So if there's short of staff, okay. Should I stand up and then tell the charge nurse like, hey, do you need any help? I
Mm-hmm.
always ask, I see that there's a short of staffing today. So
Mm-hmm.
do I need anything, for us to be lightened on the load? So
Uh-huh.
usually here in United States, in California, we have a ratio of patient. So 1:4. So if we're short, either the charge nurse will take a patient or not, she will distribute the patient to anybody else until everyone got one extra patient. So it will end up each of the nurses will have 5:1. So with that being said, you feel like, okay, should I treat this as a bad day for me or should I treat this as a positive for patient so they can go home easily?
Uh-huh.
Because
Okay.
there are patient here. Our standard of care in United States is no patient will be staying more than 5 days. I'll check their records. Are they here for more than 5 days already?
Mm-hmm.
So what are they reason for staying more than 5 days? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're just holding for follow up only, maybe for their medication. Then why not discharge this patient? Does this three patient that is like not anymore sick?
Mm-hmm.
And then this two patient that's been staying more than 5 days is sicker because they really need consultation.
You gave a great description of how it was in the ward. You have to weigh which patients could do better, discharge, and who among them needs more attention.
Yeah.
Well, Rhea, how about May? Sorry, how about you? Is there some truth to it when they say that you treat patients like family? I mean,
I can only say for myself, yeah.
yes, yes.
When my patients, when I come back and they miss me because I only work 2 days in a week, and
Mm-hmm.
they miss me and they look for me, that means you've done something good.
Okay, okay,
And
yeah.
when my colleagues say to me, please don't be so kind because you're so kind.
Oh, they also
Yes.
they actually say that you're
Yeah,
too
yeah.
kind.
Please don't be so kind because you're so kind. That means if we became the bad nurses and you're the only good nurse. That means you're doing good. When I see it like you say all in a mess, oh no. I don't hand over patients that my patient's in a mess. Because I don't like receiving a patient that's also in a mess. They know that when you care, they look for you. Oh, I like you washing me. Because you wash me properly. They would say that. You wash me properly because I asked them. I said, "Do you want to have a shower?" Some people doesn't have the time. If I have the time, yeah, I wash my patient. I even shave my patient. If I can cut their nails, I'll do cut their nails. You know that there are things you do extra
There you
that they
go.
see.
Yeah. I think mostly
Yeah, there are things
Filipinos
that you do
are
extra that they see, man. You don't necessarily have to do it, but that's me, you know.
Okay.
correct. We're doing like an extra mile to patient. Filipinos are always like that.
If my patient asks me for a towel, I also gave the shower gel and a toothpaste and a toothbrush. You know,
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, because obviously, well, the patient will come back and say, "Oh, can I have a toothbrush as well?" And then that will be saving my time, isn't it? If the patient asks for a towel, I automatically give everything because I know in the other time they will ask me, "Oh, do you have a toothpaste too?" And then you have a toothbrush. It end up going back and forth. So I might as well give it all, isn't it?
Mm.
I said, "Oh, you're so kind. You're giving everything to me." Well,
Wait, I'm just really curious about this, Nathan. You
Mhm.
worked in a medical setting for some time. Whenever I think of Western style of healthcare, it's very great, it's very efficient, but there are movies that paint some nurses as really evil.
But that's true. Yeah,
There are
it's a,
horror
it's
movies about evil nurses. There's even one movie like What Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, starring Jack Nicholson, and the main
yes.
enemy there was a nurse Ratchet.
Mm.
Would there be stories about real life nurses who act like that?
Occasionally, I did see a movie on Netflix called The Good Nurse, which was about a nurse who discovers that one of her colleagues was killing
I watched that
patients,
one.
and it was a true based on a true story in the United States. But I
Uh,
mean, it's obviously not the norm.
yes,
There is probably, like when you're talking about how caring Filipino nurses are, and compared to Westerners, there probably is some truth to it. I think it's a bit cultural, and there's probably, I guess the way we're taught, it's more about, in the West, it's more about efficiency. I mean, we're still taught to try to be kind, but it's more about getting the job done. I
uh-huh.
think is probably the difference, and certainly in aged care, I noticed that there were a lot of more experienced assistant nurses that sort of, yeah, I mean, they weren't cruel, but their attitude was I just kind of got the impression that they'd been working in a job too long, and that they reached a point where they just wanted to get everything done fast and not take the time, I guess.
Yeah. So Nathan already gave us a good point of why the Westerners are not much of TLC because of efficiency. But guess what? Even though there are efficiency, there are things that needs critical thinking.
Mm,
So critical thinking is not consummate with efficiency itself. So this is
true.
the point of view of an educator. Okay, you know the efficient way of how to perform the test. However, did you perform the way it has to be performed for your patient?
Oh, okay.
That's the question.
Correct.
Uh,
So there are critical thinking that needs to accompany efficiency. So the word is so heavy, efficiency and critical thinking. I would work with a Filipino nurse because they're more of a critical thinker versus efficiency.
Yeah,
We know the knowledge, we can perform the skills, but we perform out most of the skills because we think before we perform them.
oh, okay.
Make sense?
Uh-huh.
That's the
mm,
edge of a Filipino nurses. Yeah, Westerners, they will just know one plus one is two.
yeah,
But Filipino always think, how did you get 1 plus 1? We always think on top of it. That's why we are tagged as overthinkers. Filipinos are
Oh,
overthinkers
really?
in the
Okay.
healthcare field also.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
before they will solve a problem, they will have to dig the root cause
uh.
before getting into the right solutions. That's how they love Filipinos on how to perform their tasks. That's why all those panels, if they have panels in the hospital, one of that will be Filipino to give one idea, bright idea, and then usually the last is always Filipino suggestion.
I appreciate those insights very much. One day I know I will also need to come to the attention of a nurse near the end of my days, and whatever nationality you're
Speak,
from.
speaking of that, Reg, I
Yes, yes.
asked one of my patients asked me, why are you doing this? You're doing too much. And I said to myself, even if I am a nurse, I hope that one day when I get old and I be sick, there'll be a good nurse as well that's going to look after me. Whatever I do, I hope that it comes back to me too.
Mm.
Given all of that, I think that Filipino nurses will still be a presence in Western countries way into the future. There'll be more of them going there. I guess it's very gratifying to hear that at least we can bring something over to where we're destined. Okay, just for a final parting shot, Elmer and May, what would you wish for the Filipino nurses who are yet to arrive in other countries?
If they're doing nursing just to leave the country, then don't be a nurse. Because nurse abroad, it takes more than what you do. Really, I mean, you cannot be compensated for what you do because you do more than, I mean, more than money itself. So if your heart is not into nursing, that it will be very hard for you. I'm sure the people that wants to be a nurse, it's the same like me as well. They do it for, for their vocation or for their profession or something.
Thank you very much, May. How about you, Elmer?
It's not a wish, but for me, I always end my discussion with my trainees with the 3 C's of life. So 3 C's of life: choices, chances, and changes. So those are the 3 C's of my life that I want to partake to everyone whenever I teach. So you must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change.
That's how you wrap it up with your students. That's how we'll wrap it up with this episode. What you said, all were incredibly truthful, and I want to hear from the audience about this. And I really appreciate everyone coming over. I hope that we can do this again, and again. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Elmer. Thank you, Rhea.
Thank you, Reg, for bringing
Good.
us all together.
Until next time.
Yes. Good night. Good
Good
morning.
night.
Good night for us. Okay, bye bye.
I hope all of you found this episode very enjoyable. But for the meantime, we will have to conclude. And Unshocked podcast is also open to the opinions and questions of our audience. So send them over and we'll try our best to discuss them. If we need to do a Q&A for this interesting episode, we absolutely will. January will be the start of a new season, so we will do a sort of reset. And so the next episode will be a discussion of what culture shock actually means. So please keep updated. Click those subscribe or follow buttons depending on what platform you're using. Check out our back catalog. There are already many episodes there, and the links are provided. Our social media links are also in the description. This program is produced by me, Reggie Goulier, and I would like to thank all the guests for the past episodes up to 2023. I would also like to acknowledge Kevin MacLeod and Incompetech.com for the brilliant music. And so, have a great time, everyone. Let's all greet 2024 with cheer. Hope to see you all again soon, and prepare to be even more unshocked.